the last section, we finished wiring up our reducer to work with the email field. I want to do just one very quick review on what's going on, and then we're going to speed through the password implementation as well. Okay. So this is our flow that we're going through every single time a user types something inside of an input field. We start at the very top left. A user selects an input field, and then they type something on their keyboard that pops up on the screen. The instant they do that, we call an action creator with the new text that the issue just entered. The action creator returns an action. The action is a plain JavaScript object that has a type property and a payload property. The action is sent to all the different reducers inside of our application. Right now we just have one, the auth reducer. Our reducer calculates a new application state. So it says, okay, I just got an action. Here's a new version of state, taking this action into mind. Redux assembles the state from all the different reducers in our application. Yeah, right now there's only one, but in the future there will be more. That state is sent to all the different components. Our components re-render with new application state. And when that happens, our input has a value set to this.props.email. Then everything finishes re-rendering, everything on the screen gets updated, and we sit back, twiddle our thumbs, and wait for a new change initiated by the user. Okay, so this flow right here just happens again and again and again throughout our entire application. Everything follows this flow right here in Redux. Everything follows this flow. Okay, so again, we have wired up our email input. We need to do the same exact thing for our password input as well. I'm not going to drag out the implementation here this time around. We're just going to get through it pretty quickly. So let's wrap it all up inside of this section. On the input, the first thing we need to do is add in an event handler. So we'll say on change text, run a callback of on password change. And because we are going to reference this in that callback, we need to bind the context. Now inside this file, we will define on password change. It will be called with the new text out of the input. When it gets called, we are going to call an action creator called this.props.password changed. And yes, it is very tedious to have one action creator for every property here. We will talk about ways, or we will actually refactor another form in just a little bit to show you how to handle many different properties with just one action creator. So we'll get through all this boilerplate. So we're going to call an action creator called password changed. We have not yet created that action creator, but of course we're going to do it in just a second. So I'm going to continue wiring up this file, assuming that it actually exists. So from our actions file, I'm going to also import password changed. And then we'll go define that actual action creator. So inside of my actions index.js file, we will first define our action creator. And from there, I will return an object with a type property of password changed and a payload of the text. So the text right here is the new password that the user just entered. I have to also define my password type here. So every action creator has its own singular unique action type. And I do that all inside of my types file. Let's first open up the types file. So types.js. We will define our const of password changed. Assign it a string. Again, remember the string is not important. The value can be anything we want. It just has to be something unique. So I'll save this file. We're done inside of here. I'm going to close it. I need to import the password changed up at the top. Because I expect this line to get pretty darn long pretty quickly, I'm going to multi-line it here as well, like so. So here's my password changed. Cool, everything looks good in here. Now I'm going to flip over to my auth reducer. Inside the auth reducer, we need to also import that password change type. And then we're going to add a case to catch that type. So I will, again, new line this one as well. I will import password changed. I'm going to add on a new type, or excuse me, a new case to watch for that type. And when we come across that type, we're going to update our state object. So we will return ... state. So take all the properties in our state object, toss them in here, and also throw on password of action.payload. And the last thing we should do, we don't have to do this per se, but I recommend you do. I'm going to update my initial state object to have a password as well. So by default, password starts off as empty string. Again, I do not have to default this here. When our application first executes or first renders to the screen, if I have a password of undefined and I try to pass that into the input, it's still going to render just A-OK. The real idea behind defining this password and really even the email ahead of time with empty string is to just let other engineers in the future know, hey, this reducer is responsible for an email and a password property. Like, that's what it takes care of. All right, now the very last step is we'll flip back to our login form. We're going to update our map state to props function at the bottom and then pass that to our input. So at the bottom, here's my map state to props. Oops, mouse jumped. So I'm going to also take a password property from state.auth.password. And now my component has access to this.props.password. Notice that I am duplicating state.auth here, and even state is getting duplicated quite a bit as well. This would be a pretty reasonable time to use some ES6 destructuring if you would like to. I'm just going to leave it as is right now because I know this section is already getting quite long, so I'm just going to try to wrap things up here. So the very last thing we need to do is on top of our password input, so here it is right here, I'm going to give it a value of this.props.password. Okay, so one last time, just remember, we're repeating this cycle over and over again. User types something, we update the value in the reducer, the new state gets sent back to our component, and then we consume that new state inside of our component. That's the whole thing repeated over and over and over again. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick refresh here just to confirm that yes, no big typos, everything still runs. I can, it looks like I made a mistake. Totally my fault. At the top, we imported password change, the action creator. I did not come back through and add it to the connect function at the bottom. Let's do that really quick. So I'm going to take password changed. I'm going to find my connect statement at the bottom. I'm going to give it another action creator of password changed, like so. All right, let's do another refresh. I'm happy we did that little test. So now I can update my email and I can update my password as well. Okay, now we're good to go. Let's continue in the next section.